So yesterday, this talk show host went out on his little boat, his 22-foot boat. I have a little boat and a big boat. Sometimes I don't use the big boat because it's too much trouble. Anyway, I use the little boat because it's easy. Something small is beautiful? In most things, not all. But in some things, small is beautiful, and particularly in a boat. So it's 22 feet long with a little cabin on it. It's a sort of mini tug. It's a fake tugboat. It has a 3-cylinder Yamaha engine, 29 horsepower. It sips fuel by the pint. It seats 8 people on the back with cushions. It looks like a little runabout. It's extremely seaworthy. So I, Mrs. S, and the 2 poodles get in the boat, and we head over about, I don't know, maybe 50 minutes away. There's a place with a dock. I'm not going to say where. Now, normally on a weekend, it's jammed. You can't get on a dock. There's only room for 6, 8, 10 boats, and it's usually full, as it was yesterday. So luckily, I'm a very good boater, and I found an end. It's a narrow dock, right? And it's all full on both sides, both dock. But there's a little piece of the dock that's 2-3 feet wide by the post that has cleats. So I pulled it on the side, and I was able to dock it and tie it up. And one of us goes and gets the food. The dogs are on the boat, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, there's a fat slob in a sailboat who's bothering me. He wants to edge me out of there by making me uncomfortable, by nosing his boat near me. This goes on for 30 minutes now, and I don't say anything. He's nosing up. His engine is running. His schmuck son is blowing his cigarette smoke at me, and I see it's going to be trouble. Now, in my earlier days, I would have stood up and said something to him, but I knew right away it would have turned bad. But since I have learned to temper my temper, I figured, what am I going to gain by getting into a screaming fight with this fat pig right now? I'll just bide my time, and I'm going to turn my back on him, and I'm not going to respond. Meanwhile, the schmuck's hovering and motoring and engine and moving and constantly, in other words, nosing at me and menacing me. Lo and behold, about 30 minutes of this goes by, and the missus returns with the food because you can't bring dogs in this joint. The dogs are too high class compared to the average person that sits there getting stoned and drunk on the deck. So she brings the photo. As she brings the food over, the guy next to me is going to pull out of the dock. So I said, great, I'll tell you what. You move, I'll move in, you'll move out there, right? And we'll rope it around. It was very friendly. And meanwhile, Mr. Fat Schmuck with the sailboat, he thinks he's going to slip into the guy who's pulling out while I'm waiting. So I say, hey, I'm going in there. You're going to go over there. And he says, no, I'm going in there. The minute I said that, an Italian guy shows up with a cutoff. His name, I'm not going to say his name, with a gold cross. And he comes over. He says, hey, can I help you? He comes over to help me. He didn't know me now, remember, at that point. He just was a nice guy whose boat was nearby. Hey, let me help you move the boat around. I said, well, I don't know who you are, but I'm glad you showed up because there's going to be a little trouble here in a minute with that fat slob there who's going to try and edge me out. He says, Michael, don't you remember me? Anyway, I had an interchange. This guy knew this guy from somewhere before a few years ago. One of my biggest fans. He's from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, but he lives out here. And he says to me, you want me to throw him in the water? He says, hey, guys. And all of a sudden, 4 more Italian guys come off the dock, heavily muscled guys with cutoffs and crosses. I mean, this is an anomaly in polite, backstabbing Marin County filled with the worst of types of humans who smile at you and put a knife in your back. You know the type of nice white guy that I'm talking about. Big smile in front and a knife in the back. Oh, wonderful people. Never an honest word comes out of their lips. But these guys are straight-up Brooklyn guys, and he starts in, hey, guys, you know who's here? This is Michael Savage. He has a big radio show, so everyone's looking. He's glowering at the guy in the sailboat. The guy in the sailboat still don't get it that he's a minute away from losing his boat and his head. And I said, no, calm down. You don't have to do anything. And the guys, well, my mother's here from New York, and my father's here from New York, and my father-in-law, we're all Sicilians, and he used to listen to you till he died. He said, you're the only person in America who says anything like it is. It was one of those great moments that it's very hard for me to translate. I'm trying to give it to you in a verbal way, but it's a human thing that you can't really describe. You have to have lived through it. Now, I'm not a guy who meets people off the air. I go out of my way to be very anonymous, and I don't talk. If I raise my voice, people know me, or if I say, Teddy, people will stop and say, is that Teddy? And are you Michael? I say, that's Teddy, but I don't know who Michael is. But in this case, I said yes, and we had a wonderful time. The long and short of it is all the boats got moved properly. The fat slob moved the sailboat quietly and meekly into the second tier. And I said, hey, guys, this is so beautiful. Bring your parents down off the He says, Mike, I got to tell you about my mother. She's in from New York for a week. I told her we're coming across the bay in my boat to go for lunch at a certain place. She made me a meatball sandwich to bring to a restaurant because she don't like the food out here. I said, that is so beautiful. I said, I want to meet your mother. She made him a meatball hero to bring with him. I mean, the guy's a man. He's not a child. But the mother made him a meatball hero to bring to a restaurant because she knew the food would be garbage, So it was that kind of thing. So we're sitting there, and he brings mom. I loved her. Brings mom over. I actually sang her a song when she showed up because my mother passed a long time ago. And I love real people more than anything on earth. When you live in a land of the phony, a real person is one of the greatest bombs that you can have. BALMS. Okay. So I have mom and dad. I said, you get on my boat. Get him on the boat. He said, Mike, it'll be like you're from the Bronx. We're from Brooklyn. He says, this will be like the stoop. He said, we'll pull chairs out and we'll talk. And meanwhile, he commandeered, he took over the whole dock. Everybody, he was telling what to do and this and that, but in a nice way. So I had him on the boat. We had a couple of beers. We exchanged emails, and it was that. And here I wake up to a world without shrimp. I'll be right back.
Savage.